Hello viewers, my name is Dr. Jessica Muthe of Elim Guidance and Psychological Services Center. Today I'll be talking about learning disabilities or specific learning disability. Some people like calling it disorder. I begin by asking, what is learning disability or what is learning disorders? I'll just give this the simplest definition as much as possible. These are disorders that affect the ability to understand or use spoken or written language or written English or language, and also mathematical calculations problems. The students are unable to coordinate movements or direct attention. The disability affects young persons, but it is not usually recognized until the child reaches the school age. Now, according to IDEA 2004, that is Individuals with Disability Act of 2004, American laws, there are common types of learning disabilities that are documented. I will start by giving a few of them. One of them is dyslexia. That has to do with reading disabilities or reading problems or difficulties. Dyscalculia, that is that is difficult with maths problems or mathematical computation. We have also dysgraphia, and that is difficult with writing or hard writing. Dyspraxia, difficult with fine motor skills. Aphasia, that is difficult with language. Auditory processing disorder is also another category or common category, and that has to do with difficult hearing, differences between sounds when words are sounded. We have also visual processing disorder, that is difficult in interpreting visual information. We have also other disorders that actually occur together with learning disabilities, and that is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and also ADD, that is attention deficit disorder. Autism spectrum disorder also is another disorder that can be found occurring with learning disabilities. Now, we have general characteristics of LD. General characteristics of LD. Normally we say learning disabilities interferes with acquisition of skills, reading, written expression, and maths calculation. That is one of the major characteristics that could be observed. We have also problems with executive skills such as organization. The child is normally not very organized. They have no time concept, that is time management is a problem. Planning themselves can also be a problem. Attention or memory analysis skills can also be a problem. We also find that LD can affect social interaction and relationship with the peers or with other learners or other children becomes a problem. Now, those are some of the general characteristics that we can find with learners who have learning disabilities, but we have also general signs that can be observed in the classroom or even at home by the parents or by the caregivers or guardians. Now, what are some of these signs? General signs, we have the child or the children or the person do not make adequate progress and they do not keep up with their peers academically. You find that they have academic problems and the peers are far ahead of them. They are also inconsistent in their ability to understand and complete schoolwork. That is another one. They may show scatter in their standardized tests in case there are assessed by a psychologist. We would also say another characteristic is they have average or above average IQ levels. The fact that these children have learning disabilities does not mean that their IQ is actually very low. They could have average or above average IQs. The other thing that is found among them, or another sign that could be observed, is that they have poor motor abilities. That means being able to manipulate things effectively may be a challenge to them. We have social skills deficit. That one we have mentioned even earlier, that these children can find their peers rejecting them because of their immature behavior, especially when they are playing or even when they are in class. They have also a problem with information processing deficit. That is, information processing problem can also be found with these learners, in that it has been documented a lot that the ability to process information is a bit low. They are also slow in doing that, and that is one of the signs that we could look out for. Poor executive functioning, we have already discussed that as one of the major characteristic also, that poor executive functioning, that means the issue of time concept can be a problem. So much about the categories and the general characteristics of LD. I would like to actually pick out from the major groups that I discussed earlier and bring out the aspect of dyslexia and say that this is one of the major categories among learners with learning disabilities. And it's important for us to know what is dyslexia. Dyslexia generally is a language-based learning disorder, and it is estimated through research that 9 to 12% of the world population suffer dyslexia condition, and that 2 to 4% can seriously be affected by this condition. Some other scholars have also documented that 80 to 90% of 80 to 90% represents dyslexia, or among those who have learning disabilities. Others have also advanced the fact that it affects 20% of the world population. Now, every year in October, we actually do what is called dyslexia awareness. We call it a dyslexia awareness month. That means it is a month. This happens, or the purpose of this is to support those with learning disabilities, and especially those with the dyslexia. You have seen people wear red t-shirts, red shirts, red dresses, and they say go red. All this is meant actually to create awareness that there is a category of learners with learning disabilities called dyslexia, and the misunderstanding of this category leads to stigma. So the aim of this month, the aim of October dyslexia awareness time, is to be able to eradicate the stigma that can be associated with learners who have learning disabilities, and especially dyslexic group, which forms the greatest number of learning disabilities category. Now, understanding dyslexia better would make actually the schools, the employers, the society to make adjustments and accommodations and be able to actually deal with the dyslexics in a more better way without discriminating them and without also stigmatizing them. Now, what are some of the general signs that would point out to the fact that the child or the person has dyslexia? One of them, we say that the language-based learning disorder, that is, we call it a language-based learning disorder. Some physicians that studied this category first called it word blindness. That means the child is not able to read, and sometimes even if they are able to read, they are not able to comprehend what they are reading, and therefore the person concluded that the condition can also be called a word blindness. Now, a lot of research has support that this condition is actually genetic. That means it can be inherited or it can run in some families. So it can be said to have been caused by genes or genes that run in some families. Now, the situation itself has to do with the structural brain differences. That means this child or this person with dyslexia, the brain functioning or the brain is wired differently, and therefore it can also process information differently and is slightly different as compared to the brain of a normal child. Now, the other thing is that the dyslexia affects the processing mechanics of reading, writing, spelling, and actually maths calculation. It is important to note that what I've talked about are just general characteristics of dyslexia, but there are those signs that are observable by either a caregiver, a parent, or even a guardian. When you are keen, you may observe the following. One is that the child can have a lot of decoding errors. The child can also have difficulty segmenting words and then transpose, insert, or omit some letters when they are writing. Some ones, they can also have slow reading and sometimes and many times lacking interest. They also lack fluency which affects the comprehension of materials that they could be reading. They have a lot of poor spelling skills, and that means most of the ones that they write are actually misspelled. They lack also recognition of patterns of words. They pronounce words in many different ways within the same passage. That is, if you listen to them reading, you realize that these learners actually have different ways of pronouncing just the same word while it is actually in the same passage. They substitute one word for another. For example, they may substitute the word was with saw, and many struggle with the vocabulary of maths and understanding word problems in mathematics. You find a lot of them struggling with that. They may also have difficulty in recalling words for both oral and written expressions, so they lack enough vocabulary for their age. They might find it very difficult to actually express themselves fluently and with enough ones that are required for the age and the grade which they could be. Often they attempt to hide their struggles and they have very low self-esteem. Now, it is important for the parents to struggle and strive to build the esteem of this child that has got dyslexia, because in most cases they are failing in school and they develop a condition we call learned helplessness, where they do not want actually to do anything except that it be done for them at home. So it is the responsibility of the caregiver, the teachers, and also any other person who could be supporting such a child to actually try to build their self-esteem or boost their self-esteem by looking for any success that this child is able to make and recognizing it. I think that would motivate them. Now, having shared the above signs, I would also want to advise that if a child is displaying or exhibiting such characteristics or such signs that I have discussed, you may find it necessary, or you could find it necessary to seek psychoeducational assessment to confirm if that is what the child has is truly dyslexia. And this can be done by psychologists. There are very many psychologists that would be able to do a psychoeducational assessment, and they give you a comprehensive report where suggestions could be made to the teacher on how to handle the student, on how to handle the learner or the child in an effective way. Teachers who are trained in special needs education actually have got what we call non-conventional methods of teaching these learners, and they are able to benefit from the instructions of such a teacher, because such a teacher is also expected to make what we call individualized education plan for that learner, and having considered the strengths and the needs of the child, the teacher is able to actually design a program that would help the child. Otherwise, I ask that you like the video, subscribe to it, and let's meet more often for more psychological knowledge. Otherwise, the next video, I'll be talking about the second category of learners with learning disabilities specifically, or specific learning disabilities, and that is what I would call dyscalculia or computational problems. Bye, and let's meet next time. Thank you very much for listening.